welcome to week 4 of Claus and Effect.
Oh boy, it's a barn burner, I'll tell you what.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's my emotional state right now.
Yeah, Jacob here.
John.
Theodore.
So, I'm going to lead this off with I finally paid attention to, what gifts Carol got.
Yes, I wrote these down a while ago, but I never brought them
Yeah,
up.
it's a gemstone necklace, oven mitts, and a cheese wheel.
Yes.
a
A
fucking
birthstone
cheese
necklace,
wheel?
more specifically.
Yes.
Knowing this
birthstone
movie, her birthstone is turquoise or whatever.
That's a color.
It's also a birthstone.
Her
Is it?
birthstone
I've
is a
never
turtle.
paid attention to that.
It's a tortoise.
A tortoise.
Tortoise necklace. There you go.
Wait, hang on.
I also-
What's
I
the
like how-
birthstone for December? It's turquoise, right?
That's a good question. I don't know this.
Well, wherever
To the
it
Google
is,
machine.
Yeah, whatever it is, the birthstone for December would be the same as mine, so you'd think I would know it, but I'm pretty sure it's not turquoise.
The American Gem Society sounds like
Oh, right.
I can't believe we're just live Googling research right now.
Tanzanite, zircon, or turquoise.
Yeah, tanzanite, topaz, turquoise, zircon.
I assure you
yeah.
that this is going to be a very scientific episode.
Oh no, don't worry about that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
very well aware of your
Also, I also found out that I actually paid attention to one of the elf names. Apparently one of them is called Lenny, because Tim Allen just tells them, nice chrome work, Lenny.
I mean, do we really have any elf names besides like Curtis and Lenny
And
and
Lenny.
whatever the doctor's name is?
We have
Bernard.
the princess elf is named Coco.
Okay, so
What?
I guess...
Because when they're doing the opening labor sequence, Tim Allen says to Curtis, "Curtis, the baby's coming," and then Curtis says, "Coco, the baby's coming."
Oh.
Really?
Really?
Interesting.
Really? Okay,
That's some lore that we've apparently missed out on. It makes me wonder if she had like a more important role in the second movie that we are not aware of, but
Possibly.
fuck the second movie.
possible.
We don't care.
Yeah, fuck the second movie.
we haven't seen it and we don't care.
I hear you guys did your homework.
Not the OSHA compliance because I don't really care about that stuff, but I did design some.
We all made rules for elf toss, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and we didn't really communicate at all between each other about them, so I'm sure we all have very different takes on what this hot new sport is all about.
Yeah. And I've only got a few basic rules, so I'm probably going to ad-lib quite a bit of it as I go, but like, my idea is that you can't start with like 3 elves, and it's kind of like curling where you have to aim for a circle, but there's no limits on what you're allowed to do, so you can bring in any form of tool or device. So if you really wanted to, you could throw the elf up into the air and smack it with a baseball bat to try and get it into the circle.
I'm just imagining somebody flying a catapult into the North Pole to be the best at elf toss.
Excuse me, no. Grab say or bust.
You know what? Knowing Jack Frost, he probably would wheel in a catapult.
Okay.
Well, is he competing or is he hosting?
Yes.
Another note that I have on my ideas is that there's a sign that Jack Frost put up with like a cardboard cutout of him saying spin the elf to throw it extra far.
Oh, I mean,
long
it does sound like a good marketing opportunity, so, gotta get more of your brand all over the place.
I'd imagine elf toss would be like $10 per attempt or something.
So you're thinking that this is more of an individual activity, kind of, it's one person just trying to do their best.
I think it'd be like
Yeah.
the Scotsman's Games,
Oh.
where the idea is that you're not competing with someone directly, but you're all competing to get the best score.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but
that's
I
what
just
I'm
think my
getting
idea is that everyone has their individual goals, but because in the background they just have bloody beaten elf.
at. No, God,
You
why?
have two children high-fiving each other. So what's your PB?
Oh, no.
So Flynn, Ted,
Hi.
your take on elf toss.
Okay, so I have a theory here, and hear me out on this one. So, I think when the announcement comes up and talks about elf toss, it is my belief that that is not the sport's full name. Elf toss is not the sport's full name because, correct me if I'm wrong, this movie was rated PG?
I
Yes.
looked it up afterwards. It's actually rated G.
Oh, okay.
gee.
Even better. So, I believe that the sport is truly called sexy elf toss.
No.
Oh no!
Now, hold on. Hear me on this
no.
one. It is not comprised of elves as the teammates. It is teams of 3, one team versus another, of paying attendees. They can be adults or children, but typically it's just kids versus kids or adults versus adults, you see. It's very similar to basketball, but the object you are trying to get into the goal is a singular elf that is wrapped up in essentially a candy cane themed tubing that has been greased up and such, designed to slide around in people's hands and whatnot to make them very difficult to handle. In addition, this all takes place on an ice rink, and skates are not provided, so people will fall down and hurt themselves a lot. It's just part of the job.
The awful thing I'm thinking about this is that when you said that the elf was tied up in candy cane themed like tubing, I just had the awful mental image of some awful elf BDSM.
No. Okay. Well,
I'm gonna have to
now
stop
that
you there.
Speaking of, here's where the sexy part comes in. Every time a team scores a
God.
point, you just hear Jack Frost's voice over the announcement going, "Sexy," and that's it. That's where the sexy comes in.
I'm gonna have to
Oh
stop
god!
you there.
Oh god! I thought it was going to be Squip Elf Toss.
No. Not at all.
See, I thought that the elves, because they were greased up, they were also naked.
Okay, I could see where you'd get that, but no.
The problem with that is that the elves are all played by child actors, even though they're maybe adults.
That's why.
so
That's
a
why the
little-
sexiness comes from Jack Frost. Because honestly, Martin Short is not a bad-looking dude.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that one of those is an after-hours version that actually was sexy Elf Toss.
Oh, that would be all Jack Frost all the time. That would just he would be the star of that, and
I think
you
that
know
would be
he'd love
against
it.
every law ever.
Oh no! See, this is for the adults only.
Yeah, this is after-hours.
Elves aren't even involved.
Jack Frost is no longer Santa. Like
Jack Frost has been fired.
He was
at
never
this
Santa.
point, when he's doing sexy elf toss, he is no longer Santa, and he is back to being good old Satan.
Basically.
Okay, so for my elf toss rule set, I decided, since I'm a man of science, I decided to go about this scientifically. And
This is something I'm very curious about.
I started from ground zero with my rudimentary
war
physics
flight.
knowledge. I decided to calculate the rules of the sport based on how feasible it is to toss an elf. And what I found from my calculations, I started with a spherical, frictionless elf in a vacuum, as all good physicists do. They make assumptions like that.
Right. Of course.
I calculated the mass of an elf first by looking up the density of the human body, which is apparently 985 kilograms per meter cubed. I then, from a random elf, I just happened to pick Curtis for this example.
Of course. Just happened.
I took an image of Tim Allen and Curtis, and I did a very I eyeballed a ratio of how tall Curtis is compared to how tall Tim Allen is, and then from there I calculated his height from the Tim Allen height that Google gave me, which, if you're wondering, is 1.79 meters. So
Okay, so
from there, I plugged that into a calculation of the acceleration of the elf upon leaving the hands of a professional baseball player.
Baseball? Okay. Yeah.
And I ended up with 1.2 meters per second squared. And that pretty much translates to 1.2 meters per second initial velocity, which means that the elf, after leaving the hand of the professional baseball player, would only travel 0.15 meters, or 15 centimeters. So definitely not at all far enough for you to make any sort of sport where the elf landing is the end of the sport.
right. So what do you propose?
Well, similar to Jacob, I decided that you needed some sort of frictionless surface for the elf to land on, so
Right.
that when the elf lands, the game is not over. And from that, I determined that it would probably be very similar to curling.
Yeah, no. I only said it was like curling because of the circle in the center that you're meant to get your elf to. Only I said you can use any form of device you please, provided that you bring it beforehand.
So when you pick up Curtis, I propose that there is a metal handle that is fastened to his elf outfit that you can get a running start, sort of like bowling, and glide Curtis along the ice with 2 elves on ice skates brushing the ice in front of it in order to make him land on a target.
Okay.
So basically this is just curling, but with elves.
It's curling, but with Curtis, and that makes me very happy.
Fuck you, Curtis.
Okay.
Okay,
I think he deserves it, so...
Yeah. Speaking of other characters, I've noticed that, like, when the meeting of legendary figures starts and the Cupid guy comes through the door opens quite a long time before he gets to the door.
Yes, it does.
But his current, like, momentum and acceleration and set wouldn't give him enough time to get through the door before the next scene starts, so obviously I proposed, okay, this is the first jump cut. This is a fucking jump cut. Thank you. Thank you for a 20-second time skip in my Santa Claus movie.
It's important to know that Cupid made it through the door.
Yes. Actually, relating to that scene, I wanted to mention the Tooth Fairy, because I got the impression this watch, from the way he does his facial expressions during the Legendary Council meeting, I feel like it's really clear that the actor really wants to say more lines, but he just doesn't have them.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the way he reacts to a lot of things, I feel like he's kind of overreacting in some instances, but that mainly comes from the fact that he doesn't say anything to go along with it.
Yeah, so I'd actually give him props for actually liking being in that movie, ?
I mean, he definitely put in effort.
I'm wondering how much of that was improv, and the Tooth Fairy just was not having a good day that day.
It's a good question, but moving
also, I've
on.
noticed how quite a few occasions where the plot of the movie could have been avoided, apart from allowing the fact of Curtis not being an idiot. Like, the film could have been avoided if Santa didn't agree to give Jack Frost community service.
That's true.
I've noticed that in every scene that Curtis is in, when he is not speaking, he is always staring at Santa. Like the legendary figures scene when Jack Frost and Santa are talking, Curtis is just in the background staring Santa down.
Yeah, another one. I've got 2 notes here that relate into each other. Jack Frost, when he's putting up the sign, he's hitting fucking nothing with his hammer. He's just air hammering.
Well, that would explain why it falls down, I guess.
Yeah, speaking of that, wouldn't the sign falling down from him working on it gotten him fired for fucking up? Because Santa said if pretty much if you fuck up once, you're gone.
Santa wasn't watching, and the elves probably don't care.
Yeah, that's what I'd agree with, honestly.
Another thing that I realised could have avoided the plot of the movie is if the elves reported that Jack Frost was lying about the cocoa.
Well, the cocoa was good.
I mean,
true, I
then
guess.
again, the only way that they wouldn't have reported it is if, again, cocoa is crack and they would have been fired for being tempted by what is basically crack.
Well, no, but here's the issue that I have with that, is that Jack Frost's lie is that Santa, like, set up the cocoa for them. So, does that mean Tim Allen is a known drug dealer in the North Pole?
But wait, no, but that means... Okay, either way then, that means you've got a plot hole. Because if he's a known drug dealer...
Well, okay, hold on.
Then they could have reported Jack Frost for distracting them, and that would have gotten Jack Frost fucking booted out. But if Tim Allen isn't a drug dealer, then the elves would have known that it would have gotten them fired and wouldn't have been tempted by the cocoa.
Maybe elves just have no self-control.
That's probably
okay,
a
that's
good point.
the only plausible reason I can think of.
Yeah, it seems fairly likely, honestly. I mean, throughout the movie, you see a lot of instances of the elves being very, I don't want to say incompetent at their job, but they don't appear to have...
Resilience?
Sort of that, and it also doesn't look like they're very good at thinking, to put it bluntly.
No.
Yeah, they look like they're just a bunch of child actors that were thrown on set
Well,
to make it look like there was elves in the North Pole.
Okay, fair, but you have to take the movie at face value here for
Right.
this because
Suspending my disbelief here.
exactly, yes.
Suspending my disbelief, Tim Allen's full of shit.
The elves seem like servants almost, like they don't have any thinking capacity outside of do what Santa says, and if Santa doesn't tell us to do something, we have no idea what to do.
I would argue that there is some exception to that, however, because Curtis definitely has a mind of his own and is actively going against what Santa really wants in many instances. So
Maybe that's because of his puberty.
Oh shit! Hold on a
Yeah.
minute. No, guys, this is actually huge. We discussed earlier that puberty is what kills elves, but
Yeah.
what we have just unveiled may be something even deeper and darker than we could have ever imagined. Here's my proposal. Puberty does not kill elves. They can grow up to the adult size that any other human could, but it just takes a long, long time. However, there is some sort of magic at play that when they have matured to a certain point, they become no longer bound by Santa's influence, we shall call it. So when elves
Right.
get too old that they no longer obey Santa, they are put down.
No.
You just turned
I-
a family Disney movie into like some Stephen King shit.
No. I think it's more of a case of when the elves are self-aware by the fact they're being bound by Santa's will, and when they realize that they can do whatever they want now, as the magic of them is weakening, they do something so fucking stupid that it gets put in the Darwin Awards.
Or it's possible that they just leave the North Pole and go to New York to find their fathers.
So you're saying that the movie Elf has actually happened several thousand million times for every elf that exists.
Yes. On the subject of juvenile elves, I would like to posit that it's possible that the elfirmary, excuse me, where Mrs. Claus is going to deliver her baby, is actually a broom closet because not even the elves can stand in there without ducking.
It's true. Ooh. Actually, yeah.
If that is the case, and the infirmary is actually improvised, then that's another point against Santa Claus being a terrible boss.
Yeah, no. I think that's also not bad evidence of the idea that, like, didn't we discuss before about how elves come into existence, and we couldn't really come up with a way?
Oh, it wasn't. Anyway, for now, John, I think you should just go over the OSHA compliance
Yeah,
of the North
we've
Pole, like you
distracted
said
ourselves too much.
Otherwise, we're
again.
going to keep going off on tangents. We're never going to get around to it. So,
Oh, that never happens.
the elves working in the North Pole, despite the fact that they are in a setting where they could very easily have something heavy dropped on them, or stub their toe, or pinch their hand in a conveyor belt, they're not wearing any protective headwear, footwear, eyewear, hand gear.
I pointed something similar out a few watches ago, where it's just like, hang on, like all the elves with long hair don't have any form of netting for their hair in the kitchen, and
Yes.
it's like, the fuck?
All the elves, even in the factory, they all have their hair flowing free. And they're also, I guess, supposed to be wearing clogs because this is a Scandinavian depiction of the North Pole. However, they are wearing Crocs.
Crocs! They're wearing Crocs.
They're all wearing, like, bright pink shoes with open backs.
Okay.
Oh, and yet socks and Crocs.
Socks and Crocs, the North Pole
Socks and
special.
Crocs.
I mean, alright, I would damn them for that, but I was guilty of that myself when I was like 10 or 11, so...
The elf who was spraying chrome onto the bicycle was not wearing any protective gear over his mouth to prevent him from breathing in the chemicals.
Of course.
In some cases, the support beams look like they're made out of actual candy cane, although they might have just been decorative.
Decorative support beams or decorative candy caning?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fair.
Nice mathematician's answer.
There is not a single ramp in the entire North Pole. Everything is stairs, which means that any elf which is no longer able to use his legs is no longer
Put
able
down.
to access anything.
Put down. They're put down. We've been over this.
There's also no roads, for that matter, which means that any vehicle needs to be wearing treads.
Ooh. Well, to be fair, it's the North Pole. I feel like that's a condition that's constant. You know?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Let's see here. In the kitchen, the pots and pans are all hanging in places that elves could not reach them without a ladder.
Really?
Which is, it's again a problem because ladders have been shown to not be very convenient in the North Pole.
Yeah, because it's on a fault line.
For that matter, because the elves in the kitchen are all wearing those chef hats and not anything, protective of their heads, if a pot or a pan falls, it's possible that the elf might get a concussion and then have to go to the broom closet.
No, then put down.
Right. During the fire scene, both of them, there are no fire alarms. For that matter, the elves do not attempt to leave the building during the fire. They all just stand there and watch it burn. So that leads me to believe that there's no fire escape at all.
This is just The Sims at this point.
And the final thing is that the list machine, which is constantly shooting out paper,
Yes.
even with the elves there looking it over, there's no bin or basket for the list to go into, which means that the list is just sitting there on the ground, which is a tripping hazard and also a fire hazard.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, God.
And finally, in the kitchen, there is a giant spoon which is too big to be picked up by anyone, as well as cupcakes the size of a person's head. And I don't know what that's for.
Also, let's just point out that with the naughty nice list on the floor, it's also a damage hazard because we already established that the naughty list is receipt paper, which tears super easily.
Yeah, it's true.
For that matter, hang on. What are the elves cooking for? It's not like they deliver cupcakes and gingerbread houses in the sleigh, so those must be just them baking
think they're for the workers.
for themselves.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
For the workers, they have no nutritional food prepared. They only have candy.
Okay.
Unless the elves sustain themselves on candy, like in Elf.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like the elves have different nutritional needs than the rest of humanity, given that they
explains
are
why they
inherently
digest cocoa
Christmas
differently.
themes. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to propose a thought about what about the elf living environment and the elf economy? Like, how do elves get hired? Are elves allowed to not work at the North Pole? Are they allowed to live in their own villages? Are they
No.
nomadic?
I feel
When
like as
you're
soon as you're
born, yeah. As soon as you're born, you're indoctrinated into the elementary school where they spend half the time teaching you things you're never going to learn or never going to use, and half the time they teach you how to make toys, and then you're sent to the factory.
Do you think the elementary school only exists because Carol used to be a teacher?
Yes.
Okay, so
Basically what you're saying is that old
the
Santas
elementary school
basically
only
put
exists to
babies
give
into the
Carol a
factory.
sense of purpose in the North Pole.
If you think about it, the elves in the elementary school seem more intelligent than an average elementary schooler would be.
True.
Which seems
Very
to indicate from just their manner of speaking that the elves in the elementary school are not the same age as elementary schoolers mentally. They actually are mentally at least teenaged, if not adults, in human years, but they're still being sent to the elementary school to give Carol something to do.
Again, I want to speak about nomadic elves because that just makes me laugh a bit.
We're coming on to an interesting interpretation of this film where the elves are not exactly treated the best and have, in many cases, to put bluntly, they're seeming like slave labor in a way.
Especially in Jack
this-
Frost's future.
Yes, very much. But this just makes the sequences where they just all say something in sync in chorus that much more disturbing to me.
I mean, didn't we point out that they're already pretty much a cult in the first one?
Yeah. I mean, this just seems like more evidence to this idea that the elves have no free will.
Yeah, at this point I'd like to maybe, this week at least, replace our usual ponderance of the mystery of Bud's preparedness with perhaps a ponderance of the mystery of why the elves love Santa so much despite the fact that he's a terrible boss.
This coming week,
I
you mean?
think I don't think they actually love Santa. It's more of a, I think as Ted said, it's more of a mind over matter kind of stuff where Santa has, control of the elves being an embodiment until they stop puberty.
Then why don't they like Jack Frost? Jack Frost theoretically should have the same power over elves as Santa does.
Well, no, here's the thing. Actually, this is a good question.
Alright, I'd like to believe that it's part of the fact that legendary beings can't affect other legendary beings, because Jack Frost, from what we can imagine, only has, like, Santa's appearance, and that's cult magic rather than legendary being magic. Santa... We've never seen Jack Frost with Santa's powers, so
But
we
he
can't
also
assume...
doesn't have Jack Frost's powers.
Well, maybe he just doesn't use them for the sake of cockiness. What I'm proposing is that he doesn't inherit Santa's powers because cult magic can't fully gain Jack Frost. Because, I actually did some research on the first movie that the Santa magic makes Tim Allen a nicer person, which it does not to Jack Frost. So I imagine that the cult could only give Jack Frost the appearance of Santa and not anything else. So it can't give him the powers, which would include the slave labor powers over elves. So elves actually do have their own free will in Jack Frost's future, which ironically might actually be better for the elves, and elves might actually like to be alive apart from Christmas time in that future.
Your proposal that Jack Frost does not have all of Santa's powers is very interesting to me, and I think there's actually some merit to it. But to further that point, I'd like to point out that during their a little bit of their confrontation when Jack Frost shows up as Santa and, is talking with Tim Allen, something that is mentioned is Tim Allen, asks about, well, hey, what about all the cookies and milk that, obviously those are the stuff that gets left out for Santa every Christmas, all that, yada, yada, yada. And Jack Frost brings up that he really doesn't care for that. He says something like, oh, please, I'm cleansing or whatever. My proposal, that is the fuel for Santa's powers. And because Jack Frost has not been partaking in it, his powers are weakened. And thus, he does not have the influence that Santa Allen does.
Okay.
Okay.
Note on the Santa Claus one of the first symptoms of Santa's transformation is a compulsion to eat sweet things.
So what does this mean?
That means that the Santa suit is self-sustaining. It drives him to replenish his Santa powers by mentally compelling him to eat sweet things. And because Jack Frost, when he puts on the suit, he doesn't have that compulsion.
Guys, no.
He doesn't become Santa.
Hold on.
Oh, shit.
This creates something even crazier. Guys, I don't think Tim Allen is really Tim Allen. I think the suit is sentient and is a parasite.
Okay,
Oh,
hang on.
cool.
So when
Okay.
Tim Allen transforms back into Tim Allen after the Jack Frost future, he keeps on making Christmas puns as though he was still Santa.
Yeah, it must leave like spores.
It must leave an imprint on him, because I can't imagine much else. It's got to have some sort of deep mental effect on whoever becomes Santa.
That's why Santa wanted to kill himself. It all comes back to...
Oh my god! Santa Claus wants Santa wanted to die to be free of the suit's influence. Holy shit!
I was gonna say this was gonna be a brighter episode than last time, but we've uncovered something deep and dark.
Oh, you're implying that elf toss isn't already brutal, bloody, and dark.
I have two questions about the way the suit works now, because I was originally working under the assumption that the suit was magical, but now that it's some sort of weird mental parasite. First, I was wondering what happens if, say, Santa dies in the North Pole and an elf puts on the suit.
Okay.
Oh,
This is actually a very interesting question. Do you have something in mind?
I would imagine that they just turn into a petite Santa Claus.
Actually, I'm willing to bet that the Santa suit does not work on elves.
Yeah, no, I imagine that they would have to they would look on their nice list or adults who still believe in Santa list and just send the cult to them.
So, which came first, the elves or humans? Because if
I
the
think-
elves are dependent on humans, then that means they came from somewhere.
Alright,
No.
I want to suggest something really fucking stupid about this.
All right, please do, because I have
it's-
something stupid to also bring up.
I think it's a case of that laws in time travel where if you give an object to someone to pass down through their family, the object doesn't actually ever come into being. It's just passed down through generations, put back in time to be passed down through generations again. I think something similar happened with the elves. Like, the elves just came into being from a time travel paradox.
So, my explanation is actually a little more well, not more interesting, but a little more wham. Okay, so I think we've actually gotten something very wrong with the relationship between Santa and the elves. I think the elves made the coat, and the coat's purpose is to give the elves a leader that unites them. Because otherwise they are a force of chaos that cannot be controlled.
Yeah, because as I discussed before, elves are Darwin Award winners.
So is it possible that the elves then did not create the coat, but rather they handed themselves the coat via Santa Claus bootstrap paradox?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, like the bootstrap paradox. I think that's the name of the paradox I mentioned earlier.
Yes, that's exactly it, because the elves have mentioned that breaking the time-space continuum is trivial to them.
Yeah. And that could easily go beyond Santa's, like, magical delivery powers, whatever they may be.
Which, by the way, why do they spend the whole year making toys if they can just bootstrap toys into existence?
That's a good question.
Wait, but why? Yeah, they can... Why do they make toys all year round when... I think as time goes on, like, the elves just treat this as a game now. I think they just want to challenge themselves and
Maybe
see
they
how
just
many
like
challenges
making toys.
I bet there's a cost to doing the whole time shenanigans that is not discussed.
I think it puts them in puberty.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of thing
Only
that's given
Santa
up, like
can use time
their
powers.
life force or something.
Okay, yeah. If the more they use it, the more they get older, which weakens Santa's grip on them, which makes them lose their sanity as they can't be directed by
They're
their
put
leader
down
anymore.
because they go into puberty and go crazy! Shit!
You know, it's possible that Santa, by virtue of the coat, is the only North Polian that can use time powers.
That's
Which means that the coat is the originator of the elves. In that case,
Oh my... So who made the coat? This is
No,
getting...
the cult was bootstrap paradox, because in a situation where the cult was somehow destroyed before a new Santa came to be, they would need to create...
Whoa, guys, no, hold on. I have one small thing of evidence that even points further to that coat being its own entity, which is when the time travel for Jack Frost's Bad Future is undone and they go back again to, when Tim Allen is about to put on the coat, like, undoes itself from Jack Frost and hangs in the air and, like, goes somewhere else, but I'm not sure what that quite implied until this point, because you would think that logically, well, I say logically, but it's weird. Where does the coat go when going back in time? Because Tim Allen is not wearing the coat.
I think this is where the bootstrap comes from, personally. Like, when someone invokes the escape clause, the coat that they used after they don't become Santa is the one that goes back in time to become the original Santa coat.
Interesting. Okay.
hey, new homework for this week. Pick up the pieces of our brain after trying to understand Santa Claus's coat.
I actually did have one thing I wanted to bring up for new homework for this week, because it was something I was sort of keeping track of, but not really, for this watch. I want us to see if we can keep account of every instance that the movie uses really bad stock sound effects.
Oh, fuck. That's
a good idea.
Yeah, the bag of stock sound effects is going to rack up that highly fast.
I want to do a count of every time a child looks at the camera, because I feel like that's going to be a lot.
That's pretty good.
Considering that 90% of the movie is child actors, I think it's going to be too many to count, but...
Backing away from the very dark hole we have dug ourselves into, thrown ourselves into, and lit on fire, I did notice for kind of the first time, kind of not, during this watch, paying attention more to the background audio cues in this movie. Not the music so specifically, but also in some cases, the audio cues seem really cartoon-ish, if that makes any sense. Like,
I mean, it's a Disney movie.
Sure, but the best instance I can think of as an example for this is like the little musical cue anytime Neil does his psychology stuff. It's very distinct and very obvious, and it feels like something that doesn't really belong in a live-action movie. It feels super cartoonish. So it just got me thinking that it feels like this movie is trying to be a live-action cartoon in a lot of ways.
Wait, hang on. I just realized something on my notes. If other legendary beings can't affect other legendary beings, can't they just suspend Jack Frost from the council and then undo his freeze magic? Like, if he's suspended from the legendary council, he wouldn't be a legendary figure anymore?
That's not made clear, though, is it?
By law of legendary beings, if they suspend him from the council, does he lose his ice powers?
This is not something
Probably.
that's really addressed, and I feel like it's...
No, and they could have just done that instead of giving him a redemption arc he didn't earn and turning into Mr. Bean.
But he would still turn into Mr. Bean, he just wouldn't be redeemed.
This brings up one thing that I kind of observed. During the scene where Carol is picking out a tree, Jack Frost makes a very passing comment that Carol is legendary by marriage. Does this give her an immunity to other, like, true legendary beings' powers by association?
Yes.
Probably.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there because it seems like an interesting throwaway comment.
Jack Frost could have won if he throws Lucy before he could hug him, before he's gonna win.
Does that mean that Tim Allen's child is legendary by birth?
Yes.
Well, no, here's the thing. Tim Allen was not legendary when that happened. So, I think... Oh, wait, you're talking about the baby, not Charlie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
So, wait, then when Tim Allen dies and someone puts on the coat and becomes Santa, what happens to the kid? Does the kid just lose his legendary status then?
No,
Yes.
I think he's still legendary but the question is, we also don't know what kind of legendary powers or whatnot the kid will have.
Presumably none?
I guess.
I don't know.
Is it in an incredible situation where they take time to manifest?
alright, here's an interesting point that I think would have been made a really hilarious mini plot point.
Yes, go forward.
When Jack Frost was baited into evoking the escape clause, shouldn't they have been brought back in time to when the previous Jack Frost and Tim Allen were arguing over who gets to become the Santa for that future? So there would have been 2 Jack Frosts and 3 Tim Allens.
3 Tim... Oh, yeah, 3.
That would have been entertaining, to say the least, a big slugfest between all the Jack Frosts and Tim Allens.
I feel like that would have really fucked with the timeline, though, because how would super past Tim Allen really not notice that? Like, let's think about this.
No, he would join in.
Okay.
I think
he'd
he would
like,
be
well,
alright.
that was weird, and then put on Santa's coat.
No. I think it would get weirder. I think he would notice either Jack Frost or Tim Allen of the sort of past wearing the Santa Claus and put on their coat.
Oh. Well, no, because their coat went away. I brought this up earlier. It went away.
Oh, right, yeah.
And Tim Allen was not wearing the coat when the initial time travel started, which is why... Well, part of why I'm not entirely sure what the coat leaving Jack Frost means. So.
Oh, okay, so yeah. Wait, I guess all I want is 3 Tim Allens and 2 Jack Frosts to be duking it out.
I just want the same person to have multiple copies of each other beating each other up. That's basically that one special from Dexter's Laboratory, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what that is, although...
And it reminds me of that one Simpsons Halloween special where Homer gets the cloning hammock.
Oh, great.
They do that a lot, don't they? Of people beating themselves up because they've been cloned or they've gone through time or whatever.
Yeah, it's... I don't want to say tropey. Is it tropey? I guess it is.
There's probably a trope for it.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. One important note that I can't believe I've glossed over all this time. There is strong evidence in this movie to suggest that Tim Allen's chimney is sentient. Because when he let me paint the scene for you. He is talking to Carol about, hey, you need a little pick-me-up. He goes out the door. He comes back down the chimney, comes out of the chimney, and has his magic bag. When he comes down the chimney, you can see the eyes of the chimney glance down like it is aware that Santa is going to land there before it opens.
Oh, lovely.
I think this is very strong evidence to point to the sentience of the chimney.
Also, I heard a lot of background quotes in at the Bad Future. Like there was one father figure who said, "I'm not made of money, all right."
Yes.
And some other random person I heard saying, "Do I look like I care?"
There were some pretty good.
And then there was
hoaxes
this little kid who was my favorite who said, "Dad, I don't want this."
Yeah.
Like the background detail in this film is fantastic. All things
Very.
considered.
On that subject, I noticed a few background objects during the scenes involving the in-laws and the exes arriving at the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
For one, I paused the movie several times trying to figure out what the book on Neil's lap read, and I still can't figure it out. The closest I could come up with was La Bears,
Bears?
but I can't
And they were
read it.
bears.
How is that spelled?
L-A and then bears.
And there were bears. And it was
Bears.
freezing.
And it was freezing.
And there were bears.
Another one, the store that just says hockey puck. I don't know what they're selling, but I guess it's probably hockey supplies. And the bag of hockey sticks that are outside of the dentist's office.
Excuse me?
Yeah, when the first scene when they do the Welcome to Canada group slave chant, there's behind Bud and Sylvia, there's a bag of hockey sticks and a sign for a dentist's office that says "Don't neglect your shelf."
Elf on a shelf.
No, this was before that, but it was I'm sure that they were trying to cram the word elf in there somehow.
Yeah.
Also, another thing that I noticed in the Bad Future, on the nice list display, I swear I saw a name that said Sylvia or something on
I
there.
think it
and
was
I
just
like,
Silva or something like that.
It might have been, but I like to believe that Sylvia actually paid to be put on the nice list.
One minor thing I wanted to point out, I was actually completely wrong when I brought up the Elfamentary sign still being there in the Canada disguise. I looked again. It actually does say elementary, not
They
elfamentary.
changed it? Wow.
Yes, I can't believe it. I am very glad to be wrong about that, honestly, because it makes things feel much more put together.
That's some attention to detail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got one more note.
Okay.
Tim Allen actually gives Lucy a snow globe of it snowing in Hawaii at near the start of the thing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is what they were going for.
Yeah, I like the ironic echo there.
It's pretty good. There's so much attention to detail in this movie that I'm trying really hard to find things that are wrong with it every watch, and the more things that I find wrong, the more things that I find that are very right.
Yeah, this movie does some things well. Unfortunately, pacing is not one of them, and it also has some story-related issues.
And it also has some very morally grey implications.
Yes, as we have discussed in this very episode. I think we forgot to do one thing, which is discuss how Tim Allen dies.
Oh, right, yes, Tim Allen's death. I brought up last time that he gets mugged.
Yeah, but fuck that. I don't think that happens. So, we know in the canon of the Santa Claus, just to refresh anybody, that Santa Claus is not immortal in the slightest. They are very, very much able to be killed by either...
immortal host to an immortal coat.
Exactly. So, the question that we propose is that since Tim Allen himself is obviously not immortal, how does he die in the Santa Claus lore? And we theorize that it must take place not too long after the ending of Santa Claus 3. So, here's...
I got another stupid idea. This makes
Please.
even less sense than the previous one. But if there's some kind of war that goes on that Tim Allen somehow only gets grafted into because, his in-movie name Scott Calvin is still listed in, database records.
Santa Claus 4, Santa goes to war, and then dies.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And someone on the war grounds puts on his coat.
Oh, God. I could believe it. Yeah, I could believe it. I could believe it.
I don't believe it.
Really? Then what ideas do you have?
I don't think Santa would go to war. I think that more likely Santa dies due to a workplace accident.
Ooh, oh, right, because of all the OSHA compliance failures or whatever.
One more really bad thing that I forgot again because every week I keep forgetting to put it in my notes. Supposedly, when Santa quote-unquote saves Christmas by assembling several different toy parts into one rocket-powered scooter.
Yes.
One toy.
One toy.
The Christmas is saved.
Thousands of children will go without toys this Christmas, but one very, very nice child is going to get a rocket-powered scooter.
And I don't think it can even turn based on what I could observe.
Shining light.
Shining light.
Shining lights are lights that shine, but not necessarily Christmas lights, contrary to popular belief. My shining light, I'm just going to jump right into it, Jack Frost's first appearance. He shows up with style, he shows up with attitude, and I think that's really great.
He's got some cool saves.
It gets...
He shows up with style,
Yes.
he shows up
All
with
right.
grace, and he shows up with a funny face.
Exactly.
Hey.
It gets right to the point. You have an idea of his character right away, and it's just really good. I liked it a lot.
Right, my shining light, in the bad future, there's a sign that says you bust it, you buy it, and I could think that's very Jack Frost. Jack Frost would totally have a sign like that. I think that's good, like, I don't know, that just stuck out to me.
That's pretty good, especially the use of the word bust instead of break. I feel like that's minor, but
Very
it says
Jack
a lot.
Frost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very Jack Frost.
I don't know how to describe my shining light with words, so I'm just gonna post a picture.
Oh, no.
Oh yes, the candy cane hats. I was gonna point them out, but
There is
there was
an
no
elf
time.
in one of the kitchen scenes. I believe it's during the meeting of legendary beings, where he's wearing a hat, and from the hat is protruding a candy cane.
Yes, I was actually going to point this out. I've got this on my notes multiple times because there are multiple elves with candy cane hats like that.
I want to say maybe that's their way of Christmasifying a hard hat, which, even so, that's still not safe to have a giant hook attached to your head.
That's an also compliance violation right there.
They just came down from the
Workplace
drying
outfits. Oh, God. The elf drying rack.
rack. The elf drying rack.
Also, oh no, I might want to change my shining light because Jack Frost has some sick dance moves in the bad future.
Oh, God. Well, I feel satisfied with my shining light, though. I don't feel the need to change. Although this...
I feel satisfied with this entire episode, honestly,
This
because
episode
we've discussed.
made me happy.
I'm glad that we're finding weird and great things to extract from this movie, because it gives me hope that
this is all
we
gonna
won't
go
just be
downhill
super
now.
depressed all the time when we're watching this later on, that we'll still be able to find something to dig into.
Episode 3 gave me a bad feeling that the rest of the episodes from this point on were just going to be us getting less and less happy about
Yeah.
the Santa Claus 3.
I mean,
But I'm glad that we still find things that we can enjoy about the movie.
I will say I feel like my enjoyment of each watch is rapidly declining, but I think extrapolating these sorts of things brings it back. So,
Yeah, I think it's the discussions that really make it worth it.
yeah,
But
we'll
with
have to
that-
see if that changes or not.
Yeah, but
we have 48 watches left to fuck it all up.
Here's some brain candy for you, just to end off the episode.
Mm-hmm.
If this movie came out maybe 3 or 4 years later, do you think that meme culture would have adopted it?
Fuck. I think yes. Unfortunately,
I actually think absolutely it would have.
In that case,
definitely with Jack Frost.
In that
Definitely.
case, what sort of memes do you think would have arisen from the Santa Claus 3?
Well, I did post, probably isn't part of that, but I did post somewhere in the chat this image of like the poster for the movie, or maybe the DVD cover, I'm not sure, where everything is basically the same except the title is edited to Devil May Cry 3.
I remember that, but that's less of a meme as a result of the Santa Claus 3 and more of a meme as a result of title edits existing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's not real. I bring it up because it is a meme, and it is Santa Claus 3 adjacent, but it is not.
I think one meme that would come out with it is Bud and Sylvia arguing about the bears and it being freezing.
I
I think there would probably be, because 2009 or so was around the time that taking a face and putting impact font text over it was popular. I think there would be a lot of those.
Oh yeah, Bud's faces especially.
Finding a still of the movie that's really good, and then sort of extrapolating what the face seems to indicate about how you feel about the post.
Bud's faces during the hug would absolutely be everywhere, because he makes an amazing... The face that I have as my icon is very good, but then very soon after, he makes a really, really good sad face that is just perfect for a reaction image.
Yes, but I've been Jacob.
I've been Theodore.
Fuck.
I've been Theodore.
We fucked up the
No,
outro.
fuck it, we're keeping that.
Okay.
Fuck it, we're keeping it.
Okay, fine.
We'll have to talk about more memes next time.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Oh god, that's a disaster.
According to all known laws of aviation, there's no way that the Tooth Fairy should be able to fly.
No.
His tiny butterfly wings are too small to get
Fuck
his
you, I'm ending
fat
recording.
body off the ground.